Deep in the galaxy, the Zeltrax Empire's fleet moved in silence. The fleet was known across the stars for its immense power, and its commanders had seen it all. For centuries, the Zeltrax had conquered planet after planet, overcoming every species that stood in their way. Their ships were the most advanced technology in the galaxy, their weapons feared by every civilization. But there was one thing that the Zeltrax had never understood, a question that haunted their commanders. They were humans. The Zeltrax had heard of humans for centuries, whispers of a race that had once been powerful but had mysteriously disappeared. No one had seen or heard from the humans in ages. To the Zeltrax, the humans were nothing more than an ancient myth. They were believed to be nothing but stories passed down through the generations. Old records and scattered rumors spoke of a species that once lived in the galaxy, but the Zeltrax never gave them much thought. The idea of humans being anything more than a legend seemed ridiculous. That was, until one day. A strange signal appeared on the Zeltrax scanners. At first, the officers in the command center thought it was just a glitch, a minor anomaly in the galactic noise. But when the signal didn't disappear, and the readings began to repeat in a perfectly patterned sequence, they knew something wasn't right. What is this? Admiral Raxor, leader of the Zeltrax fleet, growled as he leaned over the control panel. The signal was unfamiliar, and it was coming from a sector that was believed to be uninhabited. The humans were supposed to be gone. What could this signal mean? "It's from the human sector," Zila, Raxor's second-in-command, said, her voice filled with disbelief. "It's coming from the area we thought was empty. The signal, it looks like a distress signal, but the source, it's odd." Raxor's gaze hardened. For years, the Zeltrax had crushed any resistance, wiping out civilizations that tried to fight back. Their technology was unstoppable, and they never feared anything. But the thought of the humans being out there, alive, and possibly sending a signal was enough to make Raxor uneasy. "Scan the sector. I want full analysis." "Let's see what's out there," Raxor ordered, trying to push down the feeling of unease creeping up on him. The officers at the consoles worked quickly, sending out probes to investigate. The screen flickered and the readings began to pour in. Everything they scanned appeared normal, except for one small anomaly. There was something unusual in the signal, a pattern in the energy readings. It was like the signal was designed to confuse their scanners. "It's almost like they're hiding something," Zila observed, her voice tense. "But we've never seen anything like this before. It's too clean, too organized." Raxor stared at the screen. The energy readings were off the charts. Whatever it wasn't a simple distress call. The human sector had been silent for centuries, and now something had stirred in the darkness. The Zeltrax had never believed in myths, but the humans had always been an exception. Were they still out there? Could they really still be alive? Raxor stood up, his mind racing. "Send in a probe, see if we can get a clearer read. We'll find out what this is. If it's a human ship, I want to know what it's capable of." Officers worked quickly to send a probe into the human sector. As the probe traveled through space, it encountered resistance, strange interference that couldn't be explained. The Zeltrax had never encountered this type of interference before. It was as if the probe was being watched or monitored. The probe's readings became corrupted, flickering in and out. "This isn't normal, Admiral," Zila said, her voice tight with frustration. "Whatever is out there, it's blocking our ability to scan. It's like they don't want us to see what's coming." Raxor felt a chill run down his spine. The probe was supposed to be able to scan anything. No species had ever stopped it. But this time, the humans were doing something that the Zeltrax couldn't control. It was like they had anticipated the Zeltrax's every move, blocking their scans, hiding their true power. "Prepare the fleet," Raxor said, his voice cold. "We're going in. If the humans are alive, we'll deal with them the same way we deal with every threat." As the Zeltrax fleet moved toward the human sector, Raxor couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to encounter something that would change everything. For years, the Zeltrax had ruled the galaxy, thinking they were the most powerful. But now they were facing the possibility that the humans, the very species they thought were just myths, might still have the power to defeat them. The fleet continued its journey toward the human sector. As the distance closed, Raxer stared out at the stars, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing on him. They were about to meet the humans, and he wasn't sure if they were prepared for what was coming. "Get ready," Raxer muttered to himself, his voice barely a whisper. "The humans are no myth, and whatever they've become, we'll find out soon enough." The Zeltrax fleet loomed in the cold void of space, their engines humming as they approached the human sector. A quiet tension filled the command deck. They were about to face something they hadn't prepared for. The human signal had drawn them here, but now, as the ships moved closer, the unease was growing. The humans, long believed to be a myth, had somehow left a trail. But what was it? Admiral Raxer stood at the head of the command center, his eyes fixed on the screen as the distance between the fleet and the human sector shrank. His mind raced with the implications. The humans weren't just alive, they were active, and whatever they had become, it was enough to make even the most confident alien species hesitate. "Admiral, we're close to the human sector now," Zila, Raxer's second-in-command, reported. "The signal is getting stronger, but the interference is still present. Our sensors can't seem to make sense of it." Raxer nodded, his brow furrowing. "It's as if they don't want us to see them." "We still can't detect anything physically," Zila added. "No fleet, no ships, no signs of life, just static." "Keep looking," Raxer ordered. "We can't stop now. If the humans are out there, we need to know what they're capable of." The Zeltrax fleet was now deep in the human sector. But even with the most advanced technology, the Zeltrax could find no trace of a human presence. Nothing seemed to match the readings, and yet the signal remained, growing stronger, more defined, as though it was calling them forward. Then, without warning, the human signal shifted. The frequency changed, a sharp burst of energy that flooded the Zeltrax's communication systems. It wasn't a message, there were no words. It was pure energy, like a force pushing back against the Zeltrax fleet. "What's happening?" one of the officers shouted as the ship's lights flickered. "We're being hit with something," Zila said, her voice filled with alarm. "It's not a weapon, it's more like energy waves. It's interfering with our systems." Raxer gripped the edge of his console, his mind reeling. The Zeltrax ships were equipped with defensive shields, energy dampeners, and advanced armor. They had never encountered a force like this. "It's a warning," Raxer muttered, his eyes narrowed. The human signal had now shifted into something far more powerful than simple interference. It was as though the humans were reacting to the Zeltrax fleet's presence, sending them an unmistakable message: stay back. The energy burst grew stronger, and now it wasn't just affecting their sensors, it was beginning to disable their systems. Weapons, shields, and even basic communication were failing. The Zeltrax fleet was being pushed to the edge of complete control. "Admiral, we need to pull back." "This is more than we bargained for," Zila said urgently. "Whatever this is, it's alive. It's reacting to us." Raxer's gaze hardened. He had commanded battles against entire fleets. He had fought wars where enemies were crushed beneath the might of his ships. But this was different. The humans hadn't fired a single shot. They weren't attacking with weapons. Instead, they were using energy, something beyond the understanding of the Zeltrax. "Not yet," Raxer said, his voice firm. "We're not retreating. If they want us to leave, they'll have to show us why." The Zeltrax continued to press forward, despite the growing difficulty. Every inch closer to the signal seemed to draw them deeper into the unknown. Their systems were still glitching. Weapons were offline. Shields were flickering. They were completely vulnerable. "Admiral, I'm picking up something new," the communications officer suddenly said. "A massive energy reading. Unlike anything we've seen before. It's coming from the human ship, or what we believe is the human ship. It's the source of all this interference." Raxer stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. The source of the energy was clearer now, and the more he looked at the readings, the more he realized how wrong they had been about the humans. "It's not just a ship," Raxer said slowly, his voice filled with awe. "This is a force. The Humans didn't just send a ship. They've sent something alive. Something that can control energy, manipulate our systems, and maybe even the very fabric of space itself. The realization hit hard. The Zeltrax had always relied on their strength, their superior technology, and their ability to dominate the galaxy. But now, here was an enemy that didn't fight the way they did. They didn't need weapons to win. They had something much more dangerous: control. And worse, this control was not something the Zeltrax could predict. It was alive, and it had learned to respond to the Zeltrax, almost as if it had been waiting for them. "They're not just hiding," Zila whispered. "They've been watching us. They've known we would come. They were prepared for us." Raxor clenched his fists. "Then we need to be prepared for them. Get the fleet into position. We're going in." As the Zeltrax fleet adjusted their positions, preparing to face the unknown, Raxor couldn't help but wonder, what kind of enemy had they just awakened? And more importantly, how long had the humans been waiting? The moment the human signal shifted into a massive energy wave, Admiral Raxor understood one thing clearly. The humans were no ordinary species. They weren't just hiding in the shadows, waiting to be discovered. They were watching, waiting, and now the Zeltrax fleet had unwittingly walked into their domain. Raxor's eyes were fixed on the screens, where his fleet was now struggling to keep control. The strange interference, the energy bursts, the unpredictable readings, they weren't just random. This wasn't the work of a malfunctioning system or a technological glitch. The humans were in control, and the Zeltrax were feeling the effects of it in every ship in their fleet. "Admiral, we are unable to regain control of the fleet," Zila said, her voice trembling. She stood next to Raxor, eyes glued to the console. "Our weapons are useless. We can't even communicate between ships. It's like we're being pulled apart." The entire Zeltrax armada was now in disarray, as if the human fleet had reached into the very core of their systems and rewired them. What kind of technology was this? How were the humans doing this? Raxor gritted his teeth. "Increase our speed and try to reposition the fleet. We can't just sit here. Get me an analysis of that energy source. What's powering it?" Zila quickly adjusted her readings. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen before, Admiral. The energy is fluctuating between several different forms: electromagnetic, gravitational, and even subspace. It's almost as if the humans are bending the rules of physics itself." Raxor didn't respond right away. His mind was still racing. Bending the rules of physics? Could it really be that the humans had discovered something so far beyond the capabilities of the Zeltrax that they could control space-time itself? Before he could ponder further, a new signal interrupted his thoughts. This time, it wasn't just a burst of energy. The signal was direct, focused, and unmistakably clear. The humans were about to speak again. The screen flickered, and the face of the human commander appeared calm and steady as ever. "Admiral Raxor," the commander's voice came through the comms, his tone soft, almost too calm given the situation. "You've been testing our patience, and I believe you've seen enough to know that we are not what you expected." Raxor's hand clenched into a fist. He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but something in the human commander's tone made him hold back. "You are still not understanding what you are facing," the human commander continued. "Your ships are outdated, your methods obsolete. You pride yourselves on strength, on firepower, but you've never understood the true nature of power. The power of understanding. The power of control." Zila shot Raxor a confused look. "What is he talking about, Admiral? They haven't even attacked us. What's their game?" Raxor, still staring at the human commander's calm face, could only whisper to himself, "What kind of power is this?" The human commander's voice suddenly shifted, a subtle change in tone that made the hair on the back of Raxor's neck stand up. "I warned you, Admiral. The choice was never about whether or not we would defeat you. The choice is whether you will join us." The Zeltrax Admiral felt a cold chill run through him. The humans weren't threatening him. They were inviting him into something far beyond what he could comprehend. But the offer was clear. Adapt or be swept away. Join them or be left behind, like every species that failed to evolve with the changing times. But how? Raxor demanded, his voice shaking for the first time. How did you do this? The human commander smiled almost sympathetically. We didn't do anything. We simply understood. You are bound by the old rules: strength, weapons, conquest. But we have evolved beyond that. We have learned to control what you cannot even see, to shape the very fabric of space and time itself. That is the true nature of power. Raxor struggled to maintain his composure. His ships were completely powerless against this new technology. The humans weren't just superior in terms of firepower. They were superior in understanding, the kind of understanding that allowed them to bend the very laws of the galaxy. The Zeltrax had always relied on brute force and advanced tech, but the humans had something far more valuable: the ability to adapt to any situation, to control their environment in ways the Zeltrax never could. The human commander continued, his voice now laced with an unsettling finality. You see, Admiral, your fleet is only a shadow of what's to come. Your strength is no match for the intelligence we wield. Join us, and you will learn to control the galaxy, not through brute force, but through understanding. Resist us, and we will erase your empire, just as we have erased the old ways. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Raxor and his officers in a stunned silence. His thoughts were swirling. The human fleet wasn't just a military force, it was alive, intelligent, and aware. It had control over everything the Zeltrax had ever known. Admiral, what do we do now? Zila asked, her voice trembling. Raxor didn't respond at first. His mind was still reeling from the human commander's words. The reality of their situation was settling in. The Zeltrax had been the most powerful species in the galaxy. Until now. They had relied on strength, on warfare, on control. But now the rules of the galaxy had changed. The humans weren't here to conquer them with weapons. They were here to teach them something new, something the Zeltrax had never considered: the power of understanding. Raxor stood still, his thoughts racing. This wasn't just a war, this was a revolution. And the Zeltrax had no choice but to decide whether they would fight to maintain the past or embrace the future. The human fleet had not moved a single inch, but the Zeltrax felt its presence everywhere. Every Zeltrax ship, every officer, and every crew member could feel the weight of the decision before them. It wasn't just about military power anymore. It wasn't even about strategy. The humans had shown them that the true power lay in something much more profound: understanding. Admiral Raxor stood alone in the command center of his flagship, staring out into the cold expanse of space. The human fleet was still there, suspended, in space, silent and watchful. It was as if the humans were waiting for the Zeltrax to make their next move. Raxor clenched his fists, the pressure of the decision weighing on him. Admiral, we've received a response from the human fleet. Zila's voice broke through the silence. She stood at the control panel, her face tense with uncertainty. They've sent us another message. Raxor's heart skipped a beat. The last transmission had left him feeling disoriented and vulnerable. The human commander's words still haunted him. You will either join us or be left behind. The humans had given the Zeltrax a choice, but Raxor wasn't sure they even understood the full consequences of that choice. How could they? The Zeltrax had always been dominant, fearless, but now they were being forced to face a reality they couldn't control. What does it say? Raxor asked, his voice cold, betraying none of the confusion he felt inside. Zila hesitated, then activated the transmission. The human commander's face appeared once again on the screen. His expression was calm, unhurried, as if the entire galaxy was under his control. His eyes seemed to pierce through the Zeltrax, as though he had already seen the future and knew exactly what Raxor would choose. Admiral Raxor, the human commander's voice came through smoothly. We've been watching your fleet. Your strength, your tactics, they are impressive, but they are not enough. Raxor narrowed his eyes. The human was not attacking. He wasn't even threatening. But Raxor could feel the undeniable weight of the words, as if they were meant to break down the very foundations of everything the Zeltrax believed in. You've come so far, the human continued, but there is something you must understand. The galaxy is not shaped by brute force alone. You are like a great hammer, but what if you could be more? What if you could be the tool that shapes the galaxy, not just smashes through it? Raxor's stomach churned. The message was clear. The humans were offering a future, a new way of thinking, and the Zeltrax had to decide whether to embrace it or resist it. Could they truly change everything they knew about war, about dominance? Admiral Raxor stood on the bridge of his flagship, his hands clenched tightly behind his back. The decision had been made, and the Zeltrax were now on a path that would change the very nature of their existence. As the fleet moved toward the human ships, Raxor's mind was heavy with the knowledge that everything the Zeltrax had known, their way of life, their strength, their pride, would soon be a thing of the past. They were joining the humans, whether they fully understood what that meant or not. Admiral, the human fleet is still in position. They haven't moved. Sela's voice broke the silence, a trace of uncertainty in her words. The tension was palpable in the command center. The Zeltrax fleet was surrounded by the human ships, yet the humans had not made a move to attack. They were watching, waiting. Raxor took a deep breath. The waiting game was over. They could no longer deny the reality of the situation. The humans had already won, not through strength but through their intelligence and their ability to understand things the Zeltrax had never imagined. "We need to meet with them," Raxor said, his voice steady. "Prepare the shuttle." "I will. Speak with their commander." Sela nodded and quickly went to work, preparing the ship for a meeting. Raxor felt the weight of the decision in his bones. The humans weren't just offering a chance to join them. They were offering something, far more valuable: knowledge. And that knowledge came with a price. The old ways of the Zeltrax, their strength, their dominance, it would all be swept away in favor of something far more fragile: cooperation and evolution. "Admiral, we're ready," Sela said, breaking his thoughts. Raxor nodded and made his way to the shuttle bay. As he walked, the walls of the flagship felt colder than usual. It wasn't just the silence, it was the uncertainty of the unknown. They had agreed to join the humans, but in the back of Raxor's mind there was one question that still lingered. What would they have to give up to embrace this new way of life? The shuttle door slid open, and Raxor stepped inside. The journey to the human ship was silent, the only sound being the soft hum of the engines. He sat in the seat, lost in thought. When they arrived, he would meet the human commander face to face. He had no doubt that the humans would try to teach him, try to show the Zeltrax how to evolve, how to think differently, but what was the cost? As the shuttle approached the human warship, the size of the ship became clearer. It was unlike anything the Zeltrax had ever seen. Alive, dynamic, and vast, it pulsed with a strange energy that made Raxor uneasy. The human warship wasn't just bigger or stronger, it was something else. It was beyond what the Zeltrax could comprehend. The shuttle docked, and Raxor was escorted through the ship. Everything was different. The walls, the architecture, even the way the ship seemed to breathe. There was no mistaking it. The humans had evolved into something far more than just a species of warriors. They had become masters of their environment, and they controlled everything around them. Finally, Raxor entered the human command room. The commander, standing at the center, turned to face him. His face was calm, his expression unreadable, but there was an air of assurance about him. Something that told Raxor this was not the first time the humans had made an offer like this. "Admiral Raxor," the human commander said, his voice steady but filled with authority. "Welcome. I trust your journey was comfortable." Raxor didn't respond immediately. He was still trying to process the enormity of what was happening. He had expected a war, a fight, but now the humans were offering him something more than just survival. They were offering him transformation, and that transformation came with a price. "We have made our choice," Raxor said, his voice measured. "We will join you, but you must understand—" "I understand, Admiral," the human commander interrupted gently. "But before you say anything more, I want to show you something." Without waiting for Raxor's response, the human commander gestured to a large holographic display. It flickered to life, showing a detailed map of the galaxy, their galaxy. But as the map expanded, Raxor's eyes widened. It wasn't just the stars and planets they had conquered. It was the network the humans had created, a living network, connections between every system, every ship, every human colony. The humans had interwoven everything, making them part of the galaxy in a way Raxor had never imagined. It wasn't just about control anymore. It was about coexistence. "We've learned to live in harmony with the galaxy," the human commander explained, his eyes never leaving Raxor's face. "And that's what we're offering you. The power to change the galaxy not through war but through understanding. We've studied the galaxy for millennia, and we know what it needs to thrive." Raxor's mind reeled. The humans weren't asking for domination. They were asking for partnership. They were offering the Zeltrax the opportunity to share in their knowledge, to build a galaxy based not on violence, but on collaboration. The price of that knowledge was steep. The Zeltrax would have to give up their old ways, their warrior mindset, their brute strength, their need for conquest. They would have to adapt. "But was it worth it, I see now?" Raxor said slowly, his voice trembling slightly. "What you offer is not just survival, it's something bigger. But what will we have to give up to be part of it?" The human commander smiled, the expression soft and understanding. "You will give up your old ways, but in return, you will gain something far more valuable, the chance to be part of the future." Raxor took a deep breath. The price of knowledge, of evolution, was steep. But in that moment, he realized something. The galaxy was changing, and the Zeltrax had no choice but to adapt or be left behind. The decision had been made. Admiral Raxor stood at the bridge of his flagship watching the holographic map of the galaxy unfold before him. The Zeltrax fleet, now integrated with the human network, was no longer the same. They had joined the humans, accepted their new way of thinking, and began to share knowledge. But the cost of that decision was heavy. The Zeltrax had given up their old ways of domination and strength. They had agreed to adapt and become something else. But would it be enough to maintain their identity? "Admiral, the integration process is complete." Sela's voice interrupted Raxor's thoughts. She stood beside him, her expression uncertain but resolute. "We're now part of the human network. All of our ships are connected, our systems interwoven. We can communicate instantly with every ship, every human colony. We are no longer just a fleet. We are part of something bigger." Raxor stared at the map, his mind racing. The galaxy had changed. The humans had shown them that there was a new way, a way of thinking that didn't rely on force, but on understanding. The humans had created a living network, an interconnected system where knowledge and cooperation were the ultimate powers. But what did that mean for the Zeltrax? Are we losing ourselves in this, Sela? Raxor's voice was quiet, filled with doubt. Are we becoming something else entirely? Sela didn't answer immediately. She knew what Raxor was asking. The Zeltrax had always been warriors, strong, unyielding, and proud. Now they were being asked to embrace a new identity, one where power was measured by adaptability and intelligence, not just strength. The question was, could the Zeltrax retain their essence while becoming part of this new system? Admiral, we've chosen this path. There's no turning back, Sela said, her voice steady. But that doesn't mean we have to lose who we are. We can still be strong, just in a different way. Raxor nodded slowly. He had heard the human commander's words, had seen the power in their way of thinking. But as the days passed and the integration continued, Raxor couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The Zeltrax had adapted, but they had lost something in the process. The old ways, the battles, the conquests, the feeling of power, were fading. The new ways of the humans had made the Zeltrax more connected, more intelligent. But had they taken away the very thing that had made them great? Admiral, there's a message from the human commander, an officer called out, breaking Raxor's thoughts. Raxor took a deep breath and turned to face the screen. The human commander appeared calm as ever, his expression friendly, yet calculating. Admiral? Raxor, the human commander said, his voice warm but firm. I trust the integration process is going well. We're glad to have you and your fleet as part of our network. But now, it's time for the next step. Raxor braced himself. He knew what was coming. The humans had promised that the Zeltrax would be part of something greater, but the true test was yet to come. What do you have in mind? Raxor asked, his voice calm but filled with a hint of tension. We're not here to conquer, Admiral, the human commander said. We're here to build. We're building a new galaxy. A galaxy where strength isn't just about weapons, it's about unity. We need you to help us, to lead in this new era. But first you must prove that you can embrace this change. You must show us that you can lead without the old ways. The words hit Raxor like a blow. The humans weren't asking for conquest. They were asking for collaboration, for leadership based on understanding and shared knowledge. The Zeltrax had always ruled by force, but now they were being asked to lead with something much more fragile: cooperation. We've already adapted, Admiral, the human commander continued, his tone patient. Now we need you to show us your strength in a new way. Prove that you can lead without force, lead with your minds, with your ability to understand. Only then can we truly change the galaxy. Raxor's mind was spinning. The humans were offering them a chance to redefine leadership. They were offering the Zeltrax the chance to not just survive, but to thrive in a new galaxy. But what would it mean for the Zeltrax to lead without strength? What would it mean for them to leave behind their identity as conquerors? I understand, Raxor finally said, his voice quieter than before. But it is not easy. The Zeltrax have always ruled by strength. Can we truly lead by something else? The human commander smiled. That's the true test, Admiral. Leadership isn't just about power. It's about understanding. If you can lead with that, you will find that true power lies in the ability to unite, to create, and to build something greater than what was there before. The transmission ended, leaving Raxor with a deep sense of uncertainty. Could the Zeltrax really change? Could they embrace this new way of life? We have no choice, Raxor said softly to himself. We either evolve or we fade into nothing. He turned back to the map of the galaxy on the screen. It was a map of possibility, not of conquest. The Zeltrax had always known the galaxy by the strength of their fleets, the power of their weapons. But now, they were facing something else, something greater. The future was uncertain, but the Zeltrax had to lead it, not by force, but by something much more powerful: understanding. The day had come. Admiral Raxor stood in the center of the Zeltrax flagship, gazing out at the vastness of space. Around him, the Zeltrax fleet was no longer the same. Once powerful and feared, they had changed, adapted to a new reality, a reality the humans had presented them with. But as he stared at the human ships surrounding them, Raxor still couldn't shake the questions that had lingered since the first encounter. Had the Zeltrax truly evolved? Could they maintain their identity while embracing this new way of thinking, this way of leadership? The humans had offered them more than just survival. They had offered them transformation, a future where the galaxy wasn't ruled by weapons and strength but by unity and understanding. But could the Zeltrax, the very species that had conquered countless worlds, become something else entirely? Could they lead not through fear and power, but through wisdom and collaboration? Raxor's thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. It was the human commander, the one who had made the offer, the one who had shown the Zeltrax a future where knowledge and unity mattered more than strength. Admiral Raxor, the human commander's voice came through, calm and measured. The time has come to finalize our alliance. We've watched how you've adapted, how you've begun to embrace a new path. Now it's time to take the next step. Raxor straightened, his mind clear now. He had come to understand what the humans were truly offering. It wasn't just cooperation, it was a partnership. The Zeltrax had shared their knowledge and the humans had shared theirs. They had started to weave their worlds together, not with force, but with shared understanding. We've made our choice, Raxor said, his voice steady. We'll join you. We'll embrace this new galaxy, not as conquerors, but as partners. There was silence on the other end of the line before the human commander spoke again. We're glad to hear that, Admiral, but understand, This will not be easy. The choice you've made will change everything. The way you think, the way you live, the way you fight. It's not just about changing your fleet, it's about changing the very core of who you are. Raxer felt the weight of the words. The humans were offering them everything. But in return, the Zeltrax had to leave behind the very identity they had fought so hard to build. Could they really do it? Could they transform into something different, something more in line with the new order? What happens now? Raxer asked, his voice filled with both hope and uncertainty. The human commander's face remained calm, but his words carried a deeper meaning. Now, we will begin the true work. We've given you the tools, Admiral, but it's up to you to use them. We will help guide you, but only you can decide what legacy you will leave behind. Raxer's heart raced. Legacy. The weight of the word was not lost on him. The Zeltrax had always been a species of warriors, of dominance, of conquest. But now they were being asked to build a legacy of something more fragile, but infinitely more powerful. They were being asked to lead not through destruction, but through collaboration, knowledge, and understanding. We've been conquerors for so long, Raxer said softly, almost to himself. Can we really change? Can we lead without force, without weapons? The human commander's voice was softer now, almost reassuring. You will lead, Admiral, but you will lead with something stronger than weapons, understanding. It will not be easy, but it will be worth it. The galaxy doesn't need more conquerors, it needs leaders who know how to build, not destroy. Raxer turned away from the screen, his thoughts swirling. This was it, the moment that would define everything. The Zeltrax had faced great wars, great battles, but now they were being asked to face something far more difficult, change. A change in how they viewed the galaxy, how they viewed each other, and how they viewed their place in the universe. We will accept the future, Raxer said, his voice steady now. We will lead by understanding, but we will never forget who we are. We will carry the strength of the Zeltrax into this new galaxy. We will adapt, but we will not lose our identity. The human commander nodded, his expression one of respect. That's all we ask, Admiral. Together we can reshape the galaxy. Raxer stood still, his mind made up. The Zeltrax had joined the humans, not as subjects but as partners. They would work together, but they would still lead with the strength that had brought them to this point. They would evolve, but they would never forget the core of what had made them great. The galaxy was changing, and the Zeltrax were about to lead in a way they had never imagined. The old ways of conquest were gone, but the new ways of cooperation and understanding would make them stronger than ever. Let's begin, Raxer said quietly, turning to face his officers. Let's build the future, together.